Yeah, g'day everyone, and welcome back to the TryPod live with Winnie and Clarkey, live all over social media. Not in my usual spot, but nonetheless, Winnie and I did go to the game yesterday together, so that's why we're here on a Monday, mate. Monday, 5:30 recap, and only 24 hours before people get to see us again for the preview. How you going, though, man?
How am I? All my hair fell out. How do you think I'm doing, mate? I'm a bit dusty. Big day yesterday, and kind of like, even though we're both lucky enough, we took the day off today to recover. It was still a busy day, and I live on the Sunshine Coast, but we were on the Gold Coast yesterday, so I only just got in recently, and then catching up with things at home. Of course, we'll talk about the action from round 25. We weren't trying to delay the inevitable that I had a shocking round again. I just want to start there. Punting is an unforgiving mistress, I tell you, mate. And you know that in more ways than one. We can talk about how our night ended up later. But I have had the season from hell. Everyone knows that. And then the last 10 weeks, we've gone really well. We've clawed and clawed and clawed, and we climbed back to a 50% best bet record. And then this round, I have 3 best bets and a really good looking mixed matchup, and I lose the lot. And it's like, we can talk about the 3 games, but it's like, I've got New Zealand and they're up 12-0. And we get the diabolical no sin bin call on Crichton at a pivotal moment, and they don't cover the line. They let in a late try. They still could have scored, and then I take Broncos laying the line, and they're down 16-0 10 minutes in, but they actually get up by 12 and then get the backdoor try that denies us the cover. And then I'm on Sharks Dragons, either 1-12. And I think the margin was 14 or 16. The Dragons are going to score and throw the ball into the ref. And then the Sharks score the very next set. It's like I don't actually know if I was that far away on those 3 plays. So I'm happy to talk about where I went wrong. But yeah, that's what I mean by unforgiving. You can't even be a little bit wrong, or you just get a big fat L. And now, I didn't send you the updated record, but it's in the video description. But now the best bets are back down to 49 and 52. And with some very surprising results in other games with big favourites, it wasn't a happy one for Clarkey collect, was it?
No, Clarkey's collect this week misses, and I think it kind of almost goes back to the point that you told me. I think this was all fair, actually, and you kind of said, and I don't know if you guys can hear these cockatoos going crazy in the background. Okay, that's good, because I live in the country, and my dad told me that like the cockatoos fight at this time over afternoon for like territory. So I can hear cockatoos, you guys can't. That is awesome.
But you
And
said
yeah,
last night you don't mind a cockatoo.
I don't remember that, mate, at all. Yeah, no good on Clarkey's collect, though, man. No good at all. Just didn't see that Manly result coming. I thought their discipline had been pretty in check these last few weeks, and it went out the window. I definitely didn't see the Panthers losing. I thought the injured staff theory would kind of apply there, where everyone would step up and say, like, hey, we're still good with that Nathan Cleary. They now risk not getting a home final. And then, of course, the Roosters hits, mate, but little to no solace in that one. I think we were all predicting a big score there. So disappointing week all round for the TryPod.
Yeah, and
disappointing week.
Mike said when you got to meet Mike in person, he says, how's the hangover? People might not know this about me. I don't even drink, so I don't even have that excuse, but still a big couple of days. Clarkey did the work for both of us. We had Alexi there, the legend for many years. Tristan invited us to go to the Titans Lounge, so I should start there. Clarkey, that's my second time I've ever been there. Your first time, so how was your experience?
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I think it's kind of like it's a different way to watch the footy. My usual way is like in the front line, sweating, screaming. You don't have a voice by full time. This is like a social environment where people are watching the footy. They're chatting. The aircon was fantastic on the hot day. Smaller lineup for beers, quicker lineups for the toilets, free food and nibblies. So I think it's like it really is like a VIP experience on normally going to the footy. And yeah, no, I really enjoyed it, man. I really, really enjoyed it. So big shout out to Tristan. We absolutely appreciate and love everything he does
We
for
do,
us.
and we got to meet lots of awesome people in the lounge. We got to give some tickets as well to people who follow the pod. Shout out, Blanchy and other guys that are diehard Titans members that turn up and sit in the grandstand every week. Got to join us in the lounge. It was a double header because the NRLW was on. It was disappointing because the Gold Coast women flogged the Roosters women, but then, as it goes, the Roosters men returned the favour and flogged the Titans men. As someone said, some other comments about my head, like when you've had the season like I've had and all your hair falls out, you're limited on options. So I've never been much of an oil painting to look at as it is. But it was just a great experience, and I can tell you guys, like Clarkey is that well known around NRL fans, but especially in his own environment, in his hometown, out of Titans fan, it's like getting around with a celebrity. It's hard to walk, 20 meters without Clarkey getting stopped. So I know he brightened up lots of people's day. You got to meet the man, the myth, the legend. All right, let's go game by game. I know obviously it's Monday night. Some people are sort of past the weekend and it wasn't a happy one, but we'll talk about the very key takeaways as quickly as we can. And probably more interesting is like, what do the weekend's results mean moving forward with just 2 rounds to go and top 4 and top 8 spots still up for grabs?
100%, man. Yeah, let's go through it. Game 1, the West Tigers beat the Manly Sea Eagles 34 points to 26. This was a game where Manly jumped out to a 16-0 lead in the first half, and I'm sure Winnie did, I did, and all footy fans started to think, all right, how high is this going to climb before halftime? What have we got here? But, 6 penalties in a row there, a sin bin follows. That's salvageable. Like, I felt like Winnie, after they had the first player come back from the sin bin, and I think it might have been Bullimore, I thought, that's fine. I think they can still win here. But then the moment he gets on the field, Olakau'atu leaves the field. And just when you thought Manly were like a chance again, once Turbo exploded, they go and get another sin bin. So I look at this game, mate, and my takeaway is really, I wouldn't even say it was a no-show from Manly. Like, you know what I mean? There's games where like the Roosters against the Cowboys this year, they just no-show. Even the best sides do it. I don't think this was a no-show from Manly. I just think their discipline fell off a cliff. And they really tried to push it and thought eventually the referee is going to go, I'm feeling the pressure. I'm blowing the whistle too much. And the referee didn't care. That whistle might have had chocolate and he blew it that much that night. Really slow game. Sucks that I didn't see these discipline issues for Manly. So I was comfortable laying them by 10 for Clarkey's collect. So I'll definitely consider that in future weeks, mate. But what about you? How did you see this one? Like, did you feel like I did that after one sin bin, Manly will still come back and win here?
Yeah, you definitely expected it early. It was an important game for Manly. I find it interesting that Manly was a bit of a hype team going into this round. I saw a lot of people looking at the draw, looking at Manly's form, building at the right time of the season, and with the perfect teams that you want to play, right? Basically, to make a run for the top 4, because Tigers, that's basically the easiest win you can get, and then Dogs and Sharks, the 2 teams that you need to beat to leapfrog. It was set up for Manly, and I saw a lot of people saying they'll finish top 4, $7 top 4, and then they can't even get over the first hurdle. And maybe looking ahead to those bigger games was a problem. And sometimes when a team scores too early in a game, I think there is a mental switch in the brain that like, this is going to be an easy night. And you actually forget that you've got to fight for 80, because I think Manly was a bit stunned that the Tigers fought back, and the Tigers definitely got confidence from winning the week before, and the Tigers were at home at Leichhardt and came back and fought, and the sin bins certainly helped. You can, of course, a team that suffers 3 sin bins, you can say poor discipline, but were a couple of them harsh? I mean, it is a lottery. What's going to be a sin bin, what's not in this competition? And we only had to look to the next day. But what it does mean is now Manly will not get to the top 4. They will still be fighting to try and be at home in the bottom half of the 8 finals matchup. But even that could be a struggle, like depending on the results in the next 2 games. And as I said, yeah, Manly have got Dogs and Sharks, but that's a big 2 points to leave behind. It also guaranteed, well, once the Eels lost the next night, it guaranteed we do get the Spoon Bowl in round 27. So that's a positive for the neutral fans.
It is a positive. Like, I know it's a bit of fun, but it actually will be genuinely a great spectacle, I believe. My final point on this game, mate, is actually like coming into this one, I viewed the Seagulls and the Bulldogs kind of on the same level, right? But what the Tigers did here was even when they got behind by 16, they just made it tough for Manly. They just stayed in the contest. Now, if you asked me last round, who would I tip between Manly and Bulldogs week 1 of the finals, I would have said Manly. They've got too many points. But now after this, I'm just a little bit worried that like if they were to come up against the Bulldogs side that makes it hard for 80 minutes, maybe we could get a similar effort by Manly in the finals. So a little bit of concern grows, but
you actually called it in the preview. You said it'll take 30 points to beat Manly, and I can't see the Tigers getting 30. You know, and that's what it's. So Manly's defense, they are a side that like sort of plays well in waves. And the young stars on the Tigers, like that ball from Fainu comes on. I think it was Caesar might have been hurt at the time. And that ball he puts Safar through like at a pivotal moment. There's some skill, there's some stars there, or some bright futures for some Tigers players. So congratulations to West getting a good win there. Let's move on to Friday. Not a happy one for me to talk about. Warriors, Bulldogs, Johnson's farewell home game.
Yeah, not a happy one here. Sorry if I overtalk you at all, mate. I'm flicking between my notes and your beautiful face with the one laptop setup here. But yeah, Bulldogs beat the Warriors 34 points to 18. And I'll be honest, just before this game kicked off, I know we had a best bet on the Warriors, but I just went and took Bulldogs. I just did at the line. And the reason why I did that, Winnie, was actually just because I've just underestimated them so many times this year. Do you remember the Dolphins game in Brisbane where I said, in Queensland, I said, well, they got a really bad record there, so I can't see them winning. I could see Dolphins covering. They go and smoke them. And there's been other instances this year where I've really just underestimated the Bulldogs. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do it this time. And with hindsight, the Warriors still celebrated that final game for Shaun Johnson in New Zealand without the win. Like, they certainly didn't look like a side that was fighting for absolutely everything, fighting for every millimeter. Now, they did put up a good fight, and they were unlucky at times, particularly with some referee decisions. But I also don't feel that the scoreline reflects the contest as well. So I'm not sitting here and saying, oh, the Dogs were dominant, because, that I don't think that scoreline really represents it. It was a bit of a tight game for most of it, man. In terms of the stats department, really interesting here. The Bulldogs missed 41 tackles. Warriors only missed 29. They also made a further 15 ineffective tackles, but obviously their scrambled defense was really good there. But the talking point from this one, mate, I think two things for me. Number one, you take away the fact it was SJ's last game at home. This result was obvious. I think a lot of people would have predicted it without that spanner in the works. And I think number two, not only is it a lottery on the field with the referee, mate, but it's a lottery if the bunker's going to notice what seemed to be a pretty blatant shoulder charge with moderate to high contact in the head, which was a sin bin on every other occasion this weekend, mate. So super disappointing there, mate. How did you see it from a best bets perspective?
Yeah, take 7.5 with the Warriors. Beautiful spot. They're up 12-0. Had that line. If I couldn't have got 7.5 and the line was 4.5, 5.5 everywhere, then I would have taken the first half line. But because I could get a full 7.5, I took it that way. And actually, the Warriors weren't covering the first half line until the final play of the first half, because the Dogs stormed all the way back. But then the Warriors struck on halftime and actually took a lead into the break. And how many times have I had a good head start with the underdog this year, and we've had a lead at halftime and still can't even, cover the game? But the Warriors probably didn't deserve to win. They didn't deserve to win. And whether they deserve to cover, I'm not sure. After that start, I have to admit, you're backing the Warriors because you're expecting a bit more. Like I said it on Tuesday, this is New Zealand's grand final. They want to win this game for Shaun Johnson. The crowd's going to be insane. They want to win it for these fans that sold out every home game this year and got very little reward. And I just expect a bit better from New Zealand. But to me, it was a case of New Zealand coming out, high emotions, very inspired, getting that lead. All right, that's the foundation of a good performance. But then it was the Dogs saying, look, we understand the occasion, but we are not giving up on finishing top 4. We are the better team, and we're going to come here with a job to do. We're not going to be overawed by the occasion. I was really impressed by just how Canterbury played, because a lot of teams would fall down 12-0 and, with the atmosphere and just be like yeah, generally we should be able to beat this side. But on a night like tonight, it's not going to be our night. Well, the Doggies did not go away. Doggies fought back into the contest and answered and built a lead second half. However, when the game's kind of in the balance, you get the Crichton call. I mean, it's an absolute shocker because RTS stumbles trying to get to his feet to play the ball, and the ref's like, whoa, don't play it. Wait. And RTS is actually like, I'm fine, I want to play it. And the ref's like, no. Trainer. And they took ages, and the trainer finally came on. In the meantime, we get to look at it 10 times. Like, I could actually understand if RTS played the ball quickly and the game went on and we didn't realize. And look, not every high shot needs to be a sin bin, but I thought like when it's shoulder and it's a tucked arm to the head, it's pretty clear. And I actually don't want to harp on that point because I think everyone agrees. But I'm just dismayed at how the bunker gets to look at it 10 times in slow-mo and then comes up with, and they said, oh, yeah, mate, it was high shot, but there's mitigating circumstances. Within 12 hours, Crichton was already suspended or charged, and will serve a suspension. And the bunker official stood down. But it doesn't help the fact that the Warriors lost RTS for the rest of the game. Crichton, who we've talked about being the second best player on the planet, and since Cleary is out at the moment, arguably the best player in the world, doesn't go off the field. And you know how impactful he is on both ends. And the Warriors nearly do score, but, don't quite get over. And then the Dogs get the late try that makes the lead look, it makes the margin look bigger than it was. It could be a very different game if Crichton goes to the bin, as he absolutely should have. So, of course, I got stiff there. But, if I have to just critique my tip, I played Warriors for the occasion. They didn't live up to it. I played against Dogs because I actually thought this team would be due a flat spot. They played outstanding again.
Yeah, and that's the thing for the Bulldogs. I feel like every time I've underestimated them, they've showed me up this year. So I was glad I didn't make that mistake again. But I do completely see your point and agree that there's just no excuse for a bunker to review that multiple times in slow motion and not see what universally every single fan was seeing at home. So it's really strange stuff there, man. Game 3, Broncos beat the Eels 30 points to 24. And my first big takeaway for this game was just the Broncos' execution. And I know this side has injuries. I know they're missing a bunch of experience. They've got disruptions around their spine with changes, but you should have at least a firm hold on that by the time round 25 rolls around. And you have to. You really do. You look at the Storm. They don't make excuses. It's the next man up. That's what it takes to play finals and be towards the top. But their execution in defense as well was really, really bad. And I just think that the 2023 Broncos side would beat this current Broncos side 9 out of 10 times that they played. I'd be comfortable lifting that as high as 9.5 out of 10, if I'm absolutely honest. Onto the Eels.
And by 30, by 30 or 40, if 2023 Brisbane played 2024 Brisbane.
Oh, honestly, I would feel comfortable taking any line, but I'm saying even if you spread it out over 100 games, I'd feel comfortable taking 95 times. So I know that Kevin Walters says they will be playing finals, but I still do have some doubts there. Onto the Eels, though, mate, a really enthusiastic, fantastic start. They looked confident, but then I thought they went into their shell a little bit too early because they were taking chances and offloading and shifting early to get those early tries. And then it was kind of, all right, we've got the lead. Everyone calm down. Let's play conservative here. And I just feel if you do that at the 11th minute mark like they did, eventually your opposition's going to get opportunities and eventually they are going to take them. But I actually look at this game and some of the dumb decisions the Eels made. And yes, the Broncos won it. I'm happy with that. But I would say the Eels lost it just as much as the Broncos won it, if I'm absolutely honest, mate. I guess my final takeaway for this one is it does set up a really great match next week for the Dolphins and Broncos, both on the same competition points. Someone must win. And if the Dragons were to fall short against the Eels, we'd have two sides on the same competition points heading into the final round for 8th spot, which would be exciting. What about yourself, though, mate? How did you see this one?
And even if the Dragons beat the Eels as they should, the fact that we will get a winner out of Dolphins Broncos and the Knights have a good chance to win too, it's still going to put the pressure on the Dragons that they'll have to beat Canberra in round 27 to stamp their finals ticket. And anything can happen. And Canberra on their day can make that a really challenging game. So we've got that pretty much assured that the finals race is going to hot up and it's going to come down to the final round. And Parramatta losing here ensured the Spoon Bowl, as we said. Ryan says his takeaway was just that start. I mean, that's it, man. What more do you have to say? Brisbane wins the game, but 11 minutes in, we're down 16-0. So I was just shaking my head what is this no-show? Because I backed Brisbane thinking they've got to be the more desperate team, having lost 6 straight at home. And coming in off a bye, you've got no excuses about lacking energy. You still got 40,000 people coming out to watch you on a Friday night, and you just forget the game started. I mean, it was a horrendous start. And at that point, 16-0, now it's Parramatta's game to lose. And Parramatta actually did just that. And look, I mean, we talk about how many gun backup fullbacks are there in the comp and how many gun pocket rocket fullbacks are there. And Tristan Saylor, awesome individual try from 60 out. That was a game-changing moment. Talangi didn't have a happy night at the office, and his error spilling into Reynolds' lap was very decisive and getting the Broncos in front. And when you've laid 9.5, you're not going to win when you're down 16-0 early. But when you're down 16-0 and then you actually get all the way and outscore the opponent by 28 points and actually find yourself in front, or I guess Brisbane scored 30 straight points. And Brisbane's, in front 30-16, I think it was, or 30-18, right? But then the Eels get that backdoor try, spoils my cover, hurt the mixed matchup too. Brisbane doesn't care because they got that win, but it's like, the record book will say I got it wrong. Ultimately, the bad start cost you, though you still actually were covering the line later. Kevy says there's no ifs. We will make the finals. And they say, if you make it, can you beat anyone in the finals? And Kevy says, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Well, you're getting a little bit ahead of yourself. If you will make the finals, you've got to beat a team called the Melbourne Storm round 27. For the record, I think Melbourne's going to rest the majority of the team this week and not rest against Brisbane, or not rest everyone against Brisbane. So I think Melbourne's going to win in round 27. I don't think the Broncos are going to make the finals. Brisbane's got to get past the Finns this weekend. It's actually a pretty good time of the season because it's elimination for whoever loses the Battle of Brisbane this week. Don't forget about Newcastle, who I mentioned earlier, and that's all thanks to the fact that Brisbane getting the win here, but the Dragons dropping that game yesterday, and horribly too. So it just keeps it all more interesting. This result, I just wish, if not for a late try, or maybe if Brisbane a little bit sturdy earlier, we would have got that cover.
And then they're also interesting that, like, as a coach and as a club, if you finish 8th, it's a pass mark for the season, even though that's like just above 50%, which, in most, or 50% that is of a possible, top of the ladder, which should be up there. But, it's about 50%, right? And I just think that it's funny that has been just decided as the pass mark, because you're just making up the numbers at that point. But then the flow-on effect from that is, we have games like the Dolphins and Broncos next round that's like genuinely going to be exciting, because it's almost elimination footy come early, and it makes it so exciting for us fans. But in reality, they would more than likely.
It just depends. The Dolphins, that would be a huge success to make the finals. They're probably the least likely. Newcastle can spin it of like, under O'Brien, we've made the finals 3 or 4 years. We're stamping our ticket there again. We've had injuries. Brisbane can try and say, well, we redeemed ourselves. Origin period was tough. We had injuries. Brisbane's a wild card because they're saying Haas's season is not over. Walsh's season is not over. Should they still be alive? And the Dragons, it would be a great success, more than a pass mark, I think, to make the finals, just because nobody gave them a chance. So it depends, but it's mighty important to all of those clubs. So that's the exciting part.
100%, man. Game 4, Raiders beat the Panthers 22 points to 18. This was a leg in Clarkey's collect. I kind of touched on it at the start. I did think the injured star theory would apply here, where everyone would step up and try to send a message that, yes, I know Nathan Cleary's not here, but we are still the 3-bye premiers for a reason. Really, everything went this way in their contest, I felt, as well. They had momentum, but they just weren't able to capitalize. And that's where I really came on the Panthers, or came to the conclusion that they were one of my best bets this week, or in my best bet multi, that is, because I just didn't see how Ricky Stewart could get this side up. And I really questioned how effective his rev up could be with Raiders season essentially gone. Clearly, I was wrong to question that. Ricky Stewart is very capable. And there were things that I didn't consider enough. One was Elliott Whitehead's last game ever at Canberra. Number 2, I didn't know this at the time, but it was Corey Horsburgh making his return, and that he was, fighting for that new contract. But I just think all of that together, if you're the premiership favourites, which I did think the Panthers were coming into this round, then you should be winning regardless. So my final 3 takeaways for this one, Winnie. Number 1, in a salary cap sport, truly anyone can beat anyone on any given day. There is no such thing as a sure thing. Number 2, Ricky Stewart does remain able to get this side up sporadically, regardless of where they sit on the ladder. And I think as the punters, it's up to us to identify the factors when and what it might be. And I did overlook that this round with Elliott Whitehead. And number 3, possibly the biggest one, the Panthers have now risked a home final. They're not guaranteed second now. So this was a big loss in the context of their season, mate. How did you see it, and how do you break this one down?
The Panthers are not guaranteed to finish top 4. Can you believe it or not?
Wow.
Now, that's if Penrith lose again. Penrith's last 2 opponents, South Sydney and Gold Coast Titans. Penrith, I think, is not going to muck around anymore and will get the wins in those games, but don't control their destiny in terms of climbing any further above 4th, which could set up, because we know Storm will be 1, it could set up Panthers Storm week 1 of the finals. Now, 3 or 4 years ago. It was Panthers South's first week of the finals, and then they met each other again 3 weeks later. 2 years ago, it was Eels Panthers first week of the finals. They met again. So, that could be on the cards. But it's not the position Penrith wants to be in, because I always talk about you want to be top 4, but then you really want to win that first week of the finals and get that 14-day turnaround and get the home game. And the hardest way to win is to have to go down to Melbourne to do it. And I think Cleary's meant to be back this week. Like, that's good news. At least he should be match fit. And, Penrith, when they've got Nathan Cleary, they've got a red-hot shot. And there's been others that have been out. Like, Martin returned for this game. Sorensen's been out. Edwards only been back a couple of games. Someone's going to have to explain to me why Taruva got dropped, because I do feel like it's become a weakness. He was one of the form wingers in the comp, and Laurie doesn't quite cut it there. But along with Penrith, just not the same team without Cleary. Yeah, they can take care of business. They can win games. That part was obvious. I kind of wish I was on this for a best bet. I acknowledged on Tuesday the line seemed shorter than I expected. I actually just reckon the bookies were really onto this, and it's the point you made. Last home game for Canberra, so that's why they got up. Like you said, you didn't think Canberra could get up. I get it because they were flogged by 40 in North Queensland, but that's why they got up, because Sticky got to use that. Who's better than backs against the wall and give your team a rousing after a bad game? And then he gave them everything to play for. You're playing the back-to-back-to-back prems. It's your last home game of the season. It's the send-off. It's for the fans. And this Penrith team smashed us every game in the last 3 or 4 years. The more I thought about it, I ended up kind of backing. I took Raiders first half, but still, for them to win the game, this was probably my favorite game of the weekend. Really entertaining, really hard fought, and I take my hat off to Canberra, physically and figuratively and literally. Take my hat off to them because they have made it really interesting in the top half of the 4. Canberra's not mathematically out of the hunt for the 8, but in a way that was like Canberra's grand final, and they got it done. So great result, and it does mean Penrith's still capable of beating anyone, but they don't completely control their destiny, and they'll have to win games in other people's stadiums to make it 4 straight competitions.
And probably a bit more of a minor note, but Ivan Cleary did say pre-game he was really unsure whether to select Brad Schneider or go with Jack Cole. And Jack Cole got hit with a hip drop in New South Wales Cup, and he is going to miss, or it looks like he's going to miss multiple weeks. So Schneider and Luai will be that halves combo for those last 2 games until Cleary's back. Alrighty, mate. Game 5. Storm beat the Dolphins 48 points to 6, and I don't really know how to break this one down, mate. All I can say is absolute domination by the Storm, and I shouldn't have been very surprised, to be fair. But there was the reality of this game where it was almost a must-win for the Dolphins, and now they've put themselves in a really tough spot to make the 8 from here. I thought the interesting thing about this is, in this game particularly, we're getting to the business end of the season, right? And so many times this year, we've seen the Storm really compete well and then allow teams back into the game. And then the Storm are just happy to win at the end. Or the Rabbitohs game, for example, we see one good half of footy from the Storm, and then they kind of go, okay, well, we're going to win this one. Against the Dolphins here, they didn't save themselves. They scored equal most points with the Roosters this round, and they just blew them off the park for the entire 80. And my takeaway from that is, because I do expect them to play Panthers in the finals, I'm really interested in which game plan will work better. Can the Storm blow them off the park and then keep their foot on the throat like they did here? Because if not, we know the Panthers are a side that builds sustained pressure and they slowly suffocate you. And then that final 20 minutes, that's when they really come over the top. And before you know it, you have lost that game. I don't know what to say about the Dolphins here, mate. They didn't show any fight with their season on the line. Fortunately enough for them, they are in that rivalry game next week against the Broncos, so they should be able to get up for that. But you have to say, by any standard for the Dolphins this year, this was a poor showing. Whilst we acknowledge how good the Melbourne Storm are, they simply had to be better, mate. Did you see this one in similar fashion?
We call it must win, but it's the hardest game to win. Melbourne's been the best team this season, and the game was in Melbourne. So in fairness, Melbourne was full strength. I'm so annoyed because it's like the 3 losses I had for my only 3 best bets. They're all in the balance late. They all lost. And then other games, it's my fault. I should have been on these. Should have probably found Canberra. That was just a great spot for him. It was no guarantee. But this one as well, the more I thought about it, talked about why it wasn't on Dolphins, but really should have been on the Storm. It was the perfect spot for him. being at home and basically knowing that they were going to rest all the stars next week. There was no way there was going to be a let-off because those players might not play again until around 27 or whatever, maybe even the finals. So I don't think Ricky would rest guys 2 weeks in a row. So once they got on top, they were never going to let the foot off. It seemed to me as well that Bellamy really didn't mind beating the master, the apprentice beating the master there. Bellamy's biggest ever win over Bennett. I thought Bennett just was too casual in some of his interviews. He was saying, oh, we've played Melbourne. We played them 6 weeks ago. We know what to expect. We're not too worried. We've played all the big sides this year. We've been within 6 in all the games. It's like, you didn't play Penrith with all their origin stars. You didn't play Melbourne with all the origin stars. You didn't play Melbourne down here. The Finns were outmatched from the start. It was 0-0 20 in, but I never felt the Finns really had a chance. And the Storm have so many extra gears they can go through. And the Finns are dropping like flies too with HIAs and injuries as well. It was a horrible situation. And then the Finns get a sin bin right before halftime, and Melbourne knocks in a couple more tries, and it's like a 22-point margin at halftime. And I knew Melbourne wouldn't let up second half. So just a pretty easy winner to lay the points or to play Melbourne win both halves, and that's my fault for leaving that one on the table because they definitely want to make a statement in that one last game with all the stars playing together before they can pick and choose where they might rest. Only good thing I can say for the Finns, there is still a pretty reasonable pathway to the finals. Beat Brisbane, beat Newcastle, and the Dragons have to lose one of two. It's unlikely all three of those things will happen, but each of them is possible, and two of them are controlled by the Dolphins. So maybe that's just me being a Dolphins fan, but as I said before, the greater point is nobody is sure of that 8th spot, and that's what keeps it exciting. And even though this was a hit to the points difference, it's still, for the Finns, it's still going to be superior to, Newcastle, and it's not going to matter about Brisbane because they play Brisbane. So that's all I can cling on to for the Finns. And after Penrith lost, the Storm knew they got the minor prem anyway, or they had to win mathematically to secure it, and now gives them ultimate freedom, luxury. And we might speculate a little bit more on what Melbourne will do tomorrow, but by this time tomorrow, when we're previewing round 26, we will know the Melbourne team sheet. So before it comes out, I'm obviously, going to tell you, I think Melbourne's going to send the B team to North Queensland. And as I'm talking, I'm just curious as well, have a peek at the odds. The bookies are well onto it, man. Like a week ago, the Cowboys were $2.05 against the Storm, which is still a very suspiciously low price. But the bookies knew Melbourne was probably resting. And then the line was like 3.5, and now the line is like 9.5, in the Cowboys' favor. And it hasn't, well, unless I've missed any like interviews or something that's come out today, but the team lists aren't even official. So it's sad for me to say the bookies are a bit more onto this stuff than they have been in years past.
They have, man. Out of interest, did you see the Broncos and Dolphins odds there at all when you were looking?
I think Brisbane's roughly like a try favourite in that game. It's a pretty competitive game. Yeah, 150 plays 270 with a line of 5.5. So
yeah, okay.
That's what tomorrow's for anyway. I'll get in the lab and look at that one closely. The battle. It's a great time, actually, the way that it is set up, because you get to pack the other team's bags.
And I only note that because it's reported that Nicarima and Jesse Bromwich won't be there. So once team lists come out, I'm not sure if that'll be fully public news now, but that could shift even further again there. Let's move along now to Game 6, mate, where the Knights beat the Rabbitohs 36 points to 16. Here's the thing for the Knights in this one. Now, they only average 18 points per game this year, so they doubled their season average. And that's, the Rabbitohs are one of the worst defensive sides in the competition. But even with the Knights doubling their normal points scored across this season, I didn't leave this game feeling any more confident towards their chances of football side. Now, I know mathematically they certainly are still within that still possible category, but I'm sticking to my guns. I just still haven't seen enough out of the Knights this year. I think a clear bright spot in their spine was, of course, KP. We know what he's going to do, but also Jack Cogger. I thought he had a great game. Dane Gagai, he went to another level in his first NRL game against his brother Jacob, so maybe something that spurred him up there. On to the Bunnies, mate. Again, completion rate just costing them, just not good enough. And they have been able to, really get away with that for so many years now because they have had a star-studded 17. But with the injuries this year, it's no longer the case, and it's really starting to stand out for them as a theme across their season. No real takeaways from this one for me, mate. I thought Knights would win. I didn't know how much by, so I was happy to leave it alone pre-game, mate. How did you see it when you watched this one?
I missed another winner, as I said to you, and what we ended up backing. You play overs in a game where there's not much at stake. I actually have to apologize. My mistake on Tuesday, I read it wrong and thought that Newcastle was at home. And that's what actually made me think the Knights will defend more desperately. Their season's still alive. And then when I seen it, since, it's at a court, then I was more inclined to say they should just play free-flowing footy. And, we played over 8.5 tries. We actually got the 9th try with a couple minutes to go. It did go over. And that probably was the best way to play it, or play Newcastle, and you had a pretty comfortable win. Newcastle, despite the fact it went over, Newcastle held the Rabbitohs scoreless second half, which I just thought the Rabbitohs were very disappointing. And that includes 10 minutes of the second half where the Rabbitohs had an extra player, where there was a Knights man in the bin. But without Cody Walker and the talent that's on the sidelines for the Souths, and I just don't think they care that much at this point. Newcastle season well and truly alive. Newcastle plays the Titans this weekend. Very likely they can win. They play the Dolphins at home. Again, pretty likely they can win. But it'd be fascinating if both the Dolphins and the Knights are alive in round 27. But in any case, I have to applaud Newcastle for losing the most brutal of losses against Cronulla and dusting themselves off on 6 days later and winning by 20 points. Had the Knights hung on and won that game against Cronulla, they'd be in the box seat right now to make the finals. So it's unfortunate for them, but it's good to see that they are still fighting and giving themselves a chance. Yeah, not too much to say about this game. It's one that if you didn't watch it, it doesn't really matter.
100% agree, man. Probably the best positive for the Knights is when you play Golden Point the week before, we can see teams fatigue late, but like you said, they still defended really well in that second half. So I guess that's a big positive. Game 7, we were both here for it, mate. Roosters defeat the Titans 48 points to 22. You guys know, as a Titans fan, I did expect this result. I predicted as much on the preview show. Maybe not this bad, but I was certainly confident the Roosters would win by double digits. And the thing for the Titans that actually disappointed me in this game is there was at least 2 times when we gave ourselves a chance to come back and we worked within a try or 2 of the Roosters' advantage. But the issue being that there's 2 sides to footy. And the Titans only wanted to play attack. They were not interested in hard defense in this game. The Roosters were averaging 37 points in their last 3 games coming in here. I expected they'd get around that mark and probably a little bit more, which they did as well. The other thing I was more hopeful for than expected was Dave Fafita to step up. I feel like he's had a poor run of form ever since missing Origin with not much to look forward to anymore. And Angus Crichton, the man they almost ditched for him, absolutely showed him up in this one. I had Angus Crichton as my best player this round. He certainly took it personal. But my main takeaway for this one is, mate, and this is actually a really important one, I feel. The Roosters this year have not been able to get over the Storm or the Panthers. And they beat everyone else easily enough, right? But what they've done here is moved into second and give themselves a genuine shot at a home final. And I just feel that's so important because I would give the Roosters a chance at Allianz against either the Storm or the Panthers in the finals, but I couldn't tip them at either Bluebet or Amy Park, the respective home sides of the other team. So this is actually a really important win for the Roosters when you think the Panthers lost as well, mate. So not too many takeaways from this game specifically, but certainly as far as finals are concerned, could be something big cooking there, mate. How do you see this one next to the world's best looking man in the stands?
As Ryan says, he played alt totals over. What did I say Tuesday? I didn't really have a lean on the side, but I said this first thing jumps out at you is there's going to be so many points because we know the Titans are pretty dynamic in attack, not good defensively. The Roosters are unreal in attack. Came off the slowest track in the NRL, playing in soppy Allianz last week, and then onto the lightning track in the daytime against Titans. And only reason I didn't play over, it was the highest total of the round. And I thought, well, Titans off a 44-0 loss, last home game, should put in good effort. Roosters trying to make that premiership push should be a little bit more professional defensively, but definitely got the effort part wrong for the Titans. They were woeful, and don't let the 22 points fool you that they had a crack. I mean, scored a couple of spectacular tries, sure, but had enough things go their way with length of the field tries, sin bins, opportunities, and still found themselves down 16 points at halftime. Why? Because the Titans could not defend a repeat set the whole day. If the Titans dropped the ball, you knew the Roosters would score, and sure enough, they did. If the Roosters had the ball and got a 6 again or a penalty, you just knew the Titans were letting them in. The Titans had no grit, no toughness, no resilience at all, which is pretty embarrassing. I talked about how disappointing New Zealand were, and there was a big occasion for them. But then I talked about how the Raiders got up for their last home game. This was the Titans' last home game. Like, put aside the fact that Clarkey has flown all the way out from Canberra to watch you play in person. You can't get a win from him. Clarkey hasn't seen his team win in person in 3 or 4 years and gets to a fair few games. Drives to Sydney from Canberra to watch him play and comes up to the Goldie from time to time. Can't see his team win. But so that's the thing about the Titans. One positive note, as you know, a couple of us have backed AKP, top try scorer. We were just very nervous about the matchup, the direct matchup, Khan Pereira versus Dom Young, and there was only 2 tries between them going into the game. And the Titans lose by 26 points, but Khan Pereira has a hat trick and Dom Young only gets 1. So somehow that's nearly been sewn up, the top try award. That was a one positive. So like a Titans player has 23 tries this year and 2 games to go. Pretty cool. Like, he's about the only one for me that really had a dig. As for the Roosters, red hot side. Brandon Smith was rested with the calf strain. Connor Watson didn't play. Now, Swali, I haven't heard the severity of his injury. If you think the Roosters can win the comp, and I think they absolutely can, they want him there. I reckon he's still an underrated player, and I reckon people don't like him because he's going to the Wallabies and because of what happened in Origin. Trust me, like, that's such a frightening backline, and especially when Swali's there, and he is a player that can turn a game, as are a lot of the others around him. Tupou is more like the professional, the finisher, but Dom Young, we know what he can do. Manu, the other 3/4, the halves, especially Sam Walker, the way he's playing. Then you shift other blokes out there like the edge back rowers, like Crichton. How well that worked out for the Roosters that they nearly ended up with Fafita over Crichton, but because Fafita backflipped, they could put their focus and actually retain Angus. And Tupanua gets shifted out to centre and is a real athlete as well. So the Roosters are a gun team. And look, the Roosters will make you look bad. So I suppose if you want to try and forgive the Titans, you can say they played a hot Roosters side that's got their eyes on the prize. It was always going to be a really tough game. But if you were there, or I'm sure the opinion of people watching on TV had to think how poor that was by the Titans. I didn't say they had to win, but just like show some heart. Go a period of 4 or 5 minutes where you actually defend your line before you eventually crack, if you have to crack. So pretty poor Titans, which was a shame for us because we're there. And like, while we saw plenty of exciting moments, we would have just liked to see like a bit of a more hotly contested match. Now, as for the ladder, you said that the Roosters, have not proven they can beat the Panthers or Storm. They might not have to play either of them to get to the prelim. Like, it's not just the home final. It's the fact that Cronulla now sits 3rd. So the Roosters can't control that. But if Cronulla wins out, the Roosters are going to be absolutely licking their lips to get Cronulla, no disrespect. And I think Cronulla probably feels the same way. Cronulla's like, we're 1 win away from beating another Sydney club and getting to a prelim without even having to go through Melbourne or Penrith. You really was pretty inconceivable 2 weeks ago. So it's such a great opportunity for the Roosters that absolutely have the team to do it. And then I really can't see them dropping a game. Depending, if Penrith keeps winning, I think the Roosters will feel they have to keep winning. So we'll have to just monitor that week by week, what the stakes are, because a team like Sydney, even Cronulla, and even Penrith, they would like to maybe rest a player here or there in the last couple of weeks before we're playing for all the marbles. But these sides don't have that luxury right now because of the results of the last 2 weeks. Those positions are so important. As you said, home field is important, but also because of who you play first round is equally massive.
100%, and that's no disrespect to the Sharks. I think you ask a footy fan that goes for any club, who would you rather play in the finals out of Storm, Panthers, and Sharks? We're all going to pick Sharkies just by nature of the other two and their reputation in the finals. Final
But
game of the
the dark
yeah.
horse is equally, as I just said, in a position to get to a prelim without beating the best two teams of this year. Yeah, because in my head, Penrith have still been one of the best two teams of this year in terms of when they're all fit and when they're at their best. Let's say that's a fair comment. Well, Cronulla, this was meant to be a tough game, and they won it by 28 points. I think that is a team that's under the radar. I reckon more people are talking about what the Dogs can do in the finals than the Sharks, and I actually think that's a mistake.
Well, yeah, I didn't see this result either. So the final game of the round, Sharkies win 38 points to 10 over the Dragons in Wollongong. And I'll start with the Dragons because I don't know what to say at this point, mate. It's round 25. We're going into round 26. The Dragons are a current top 8 side, and they cannot record back-to-back wins out all this year unless it includes the last place West Tigers. Let alone compete, though, Winnie. Like, when they lose these back-to-back games, it's often like a no-show or they just get blown out. And the theme starts literally in round 1 and 2. They smoke the Titans as underdogs on the Gold Coast. Then they stay in Queensland and versus the Dolphins and lose 38-0 as favourites. And you go through their season, and if you do get a chance, anyone that's listening, go to the Dragons draw on their website and just scroll down. It has been an inconsistent season I've just never seen before. It can't be coincidence.
Seesaw.
And it can't be coincidence, man, because coincidence is like, I don't know, it happens for the first 10 rounds. Like, this is a mental thing for the Dragons.
Yeah, no, it's a real pattern.
And I stand by, mate. Like, even if Dragons finish 8th, they are gone first week of the finals. And if they win the the first week, they can't win the second. There's no evidence to show us they can beat sides 2 weeks in a row, let alone win 4 in a row. Now, the fortunate thing for the Dragons, though, is now they are coming off a loss. They will smoke the Eels next week. So that will put pressure on the Dolphins, Broncos, Knights, etc., etc. Over to the Sharks. They've also given themselves a shot at a home final, which would be key because I believe in finals from weeks 2 to 3 onwards, PointsBet cannot be used as a home stadium due to its smaller size, but I think it can in week 1. So they've given themselves a genuine chance to have a home final in their actual ground. And then, of course, when you go to the prelim, you would be at a core anyway there in Sydney. So I thought they were really good. I thought what they did really well in this game was seize momentum and not let it go. Really, the only moment where I felt the Dragons were working back into it was Ben Hunt's try assist towards Ashley Klein. That was the only real shift in momentum, and that was disgraceful, that incident there. But that was really the only shift in momentum, like where I felt, okay, here come the Dragons. Outside of that, I thought the Sharks were really impressive. They got momentum, they managed it, they controlled the pace of the game, and didn't really allow the Dragons too many chances to get back into it, mate. Did you see this one in similar fashion?
I'm very disappointed in that moment. I'm disappointed in the Dragons, absolutely. My best bet, either team 1 to 12. To get that at $1.80, this type of game, it looks like it had absolutely no chance because it's a 28-point final margin, but I felt like that was a really good bet. The mixed matchup was in a precarious position because the Broncos didn't win by enough, so we needed either team 1 to 5. It was Cronulla by 2 points in the second half, where we were in a position to get that best bet win, to get that mixed matchup win. What happened after that was a very, very disappointing Dragons display in the second half. Like, I definitely thought the Sharkies would be up for this one, coming off a massive scare against the Knights. Rivalry game, you're in the 4, but you need to keep winning to stay in the 4. And why am I forgetting? Trendle joins the halves, so it gives you the boost there. And they've actually got some question marks. What do you do if Hines is back? I feel like Atkinson's going so well in the halves. Dare I say, could Nico play a 14 role? But then I don't know if you can blame Nico off the bench because when he gets on the field, he gets head noise that he's going to make a mistake. I don't know. That's a discussion and a problem for Fitzgibbon to figure out, right? But we lost this best bet. Look, if the Dragons that line break at that time, it would have cut it back to an 8-point margin, I think it was, and make it a very interesting game. And I don't think I've ever seen a team make a clean line break and then it's just a fullback to beat, draw, and pass, and the pass hits the ref. Of course, it hit Klein. The amount of best bets fines cost over the last 10 years. He finds a way one way or another. That was a new way, right? I can't be certain that if the Dragons score there, it's going to be 1-12 margin. But they didn't. They got the 6 points denied there, and then the Sharkies scored the very next set. So it was absolutely brutal. It changed the game. But I want to equally lay the blame for that best bet loss with St. George, because, yeah, you can say I should have known the pattern you've talked about every week. Good, bad, and they're good last week, so they're going to be bad this week. But I really thought you're at home. You want to make sure you stamp your finals ticket. You're playing your nemesis. It's the Flanagan against Sharks factor. If the Dragons can't get up for that, what game can they get up for? So I just thought it was so disappointing as a combination of, I'm not going to get a fluke play going my way that saves a try that maybe saves me a win. But what I do need is the teams that I'm backing to show up. That's a no-show by St. George second half. Keeps the door ajar for all the teams beneath them. And if they do keep this trend of good, bad, yeah, they'll beat Para next week, and then they'll lose to the Raiders in round 27, and they'll miss the finals. And shout out to Blanchy, who came to the game, and he's a diehard Dragons fan, and he said that's what will happen. Like, his knowledge of that team, that's basically what he's expecting. As for Cronulla, taking care of business, reminding everyone we are still here. Sure, they'd love to play a home final. I want to double check that. I feel like they'd be allowed to play at home in week 2, but I know they wouldn't be allowed to play at home in week 3. But if you're Cronulla, you definitely rather stay in third and stay above Penrith, because you definitely rather play the Roosters at Allianz than the Storm at Amy. Simple as that, and not have to travel, right? So they've done what they needed to do in that one, and I got served a reverse sweep. Did I deserve it? You guys let me know in the comments. I felt like a bit hard done by it. I just felt like, again, punting is unforgiving when you work so hard each win to claw back on the record, and then to lose 3 in quick succession. That all kept you interested, and all ended with the wrong teams running in, breakaway tries just to put the result beyond doubt. But it happens, doesn't it? We had a great day. We met a lot of cool people. Went to the Sporting Globe after to catch this game, and we left the casino with our tail between our legs after that as well. So it was a cautionary tale that if you get too confident, this game will humble you pretty quick.
Yep, the casino was much like this game, promising at the start and ultimately very, very disappointing. That's all I'll say about that. Alrighty, guys, that is our round 25 NRL recap show, one day later than usual. So that does mean that tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. we'll be back to preview round 26. I'll have a Clarkey's Collect. The man above me will have some best bets, and we will do it all again. So thank you very much for tuning in tonight, and I'll hand it over to you, Winnie, to say farewell.
Yeah, we'll get a clip from Tristan. He said they had a mixed bag. Obviously loved a couple of those big upsets, but then a couple of favourites like Storm and Roosters having big wins. It goes the other way. I do want to shout out Nicole. Seems like a pretty obvious pick. Jerome Hughes to score a try, but he got, whatever it was, $3.50, $3.75 odds. You beauty. Like, that's a very strong price. It's another winner for Nicole, so we thank him, and we thank everyone that tuned in tonight at a irregular spot. So thanks for bearing with us where it wasn't possible for us to put this together, being on location last night. And it's a quick turnaround for us now, Clarkey. So that's not a good spot. We're on a short turnaround, but I think we can do it. We can get up for it because of the importance and because it's a bounce back spot for me to preview round 26. So enjoy your Tuesday tomorrow, guys, before we do this all again in 23 hours' time.